Hello class, this is chapter 19A, Order of Operations, and hopefully a lot of this is review. The first step in order of operations is to look for parentheses or grouping symbols, and some books will actually use brackets like this as grouping symbols. The second step is to look for what we call exponentiation. Now that's a pretty big word that basically means raising numbers to powers, and that power is then called an exponent. Something like squaring a number or cubing a number, which means taking it times itself 3 times. Next, we look for multiplication and division in order. And since we read from left to right, that's how we work the problem, from left to right. If we've taken care of parentheses, taking care of exponentiation, if we've taken care of multiply and divide, lastly we take care of the addition and subtraction, and again note that that is in order from left to right. Now some people remember this by the word PEMDAS. Some people just simply remember it in order of parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add and subtract. But remember, multiply and divide are kind of equal as long as you're going from left to right. And so are addition and subtraction as long as you go from left to right. Don't think that you have to multiply everything first and then divide stuff, then add stuff, then subtract stuff. We really are going to work in order. Let's take a look at our first example. If we look at this first one, oh, and I should point this out, it's usually a good idea when you're first really working with this to try to change only one thing at a time. And if you have to write some extra steps, it's still a lot easier than trying to make too many changes at once, because sometimes you end up getting yourself goofed up by doing so. The first thing we're supposed to look for is parentheses, and if you'll notice, there aren't any. And as a matter of fact, you will not have any exponents in this lesson. So the next thing we need to look for is multiply and divide in order from left to right. So I'm going to start with this 30 divided by 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10. I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down. I'm still working in order from left to right. I'm still working with multiply and divide. So the next thing I'm supposed to do is this multiply. So I will have 10 plus 12, which then I can go back and do my addition. That's my last step, add and subtract in order from left to right. Now I can do that and I will get 22. Let's look at sample B. In sample B, I do have parentheses, so that has to be done first. 3 plus 2 is 5, and then copying down the times 6. Since I'm supposed to multiply and divide in order from left to right, I have to do this division first. 30 divided by 5 equals 6. Times my 6. I still am looking for multiplication and division, and I have a multiplication problem here, so it's 36. Again, I have parentheses, so it's going to be 7 times negative 2 minus 1 equals. Now 7 times negative 2 is going to be negative 14. Because I have to multiply before I do any subtraction. Negative 14 minus 1. With subtraction, we usually rewrite to add the opposite. My answer is going to be negative 15. When I look at example D, I ask myself, do I have parentheses? No, I do not. Again, there will be no exponents in this lesson, So I'm down to multiply and divide in order from left to right. I have a division to do right here, and that's negative 10. I'll copy the rest of the problem down. You'll note that there's a multiplication here, so I have to do that part next. Negative 10 plus 10 is going to equal 0, because the only thing I have left to do is addition. Example E is a little tricky. It kind of goes against the rules. The truth is, you need to simplify your numerator. So you really have to do this 8 plus 4 first, and that's 12. Divide by negative 6 minus my negative 6. Now I have this division to do. That's negative 2 minus negative 6. The only thing I have left is a subtraction, but I'll have to rewrite it. Negative 2 plus 6 is going to equal 4. Here again, we have a problem with a quotient. Some people always start with the numerator when they're going to have to simplify a numerator. That's okay if you really want to. Technically, the addition should be done after the multiplication. So technically, this should be 4 plus negative 16 over 4 times 5 is 20. Then I should do the 4 plus negative 16, which equals negative 12, over 20. Now this problem is also a little bit complicated, and I show it to you because there might be one or two in the worksheet. You really can't come up with a whole number for an answer here, but what we have here is a fraction. It's actually called a rational number in math, and it is going to be negative, and you really have to reduce it like you would reduce a fraction. Since both 12 and 20 can be divided by 4, I'm going to take negative 12 divided by 4 and get the 3, and then 20 divided by 4 to get 5, and my answer will be negative 3/5. Now, if you would happen to do this one on a calculator, you'll get a decimal of negative 0.6. In G, problem G, we're again working with kind of a fraction type of problem. This is actually called a rational number. Here, because the multiplication is in the numerator, I'm going to start with the numerator. And negative 9 times negative 5 is positive 45. And then I copy the rest of the problem down. Then I'm going to take care of the subtraction by rewriting. I will get 45 over 3, which equals 15. An application of this problem would be writing a sentence that will give us the area of the remaining portion. The pasture is the big rectangle, and it's 40 yards by 30 yards. The shed is a square, the red square in this lesson, although in your notes it looks like a black shed, and that's 4 yards by 4 yards. Now, this is based on the fact that you recall that area equals length times width. Remember, we've used that already this chapter. I know that I have the big area, which is found by taking 40 times 30. And just to find what's left over here, if I don't taking into consideration the shed, I'll subtract the area of the shed, which is 4 times 4. Working from left to right, I need to do this multiplication first. 1200 minus 4 times 4. Then I have the other multiplication to do, 1200 minus 16, which equals 1,184 yards. And remember, it's area, so we're going to take yards squared. Now, one of the ways to write it is that way. Otherwise, you use an SQ and then a YD. That concludes Lesson 1-9A on the order of operations. Catch you next time.